Я хотел бы, может быть, начать
I'd like to start
с такого, ну, может быть, немножко философского,
with kind
конечно,
of a
вопроса, а
philosophical
потом, может
issue,
быть, спустимся
and then we
к
might get down
тому,
to
как
mundane
непосредственно
issues
работают
of how
технологии
technologies are
на рынке.
operating on the
И,
market.
Сергей, как бы хотел
Sergey,
бы, ну, как бы, чтобы ты, может быть, немножко,
I'd
во-первых,
like
рассказал
you
пару
to
слов о себе,
say a couple of words about yourself,
как бы о своем опыте,
about your own
и
experience,
затем
and
о том,
then
ну, насколько
I'd like you to touch
внедрение
upon
новых технологий,
the
работы
issue
с
of how the
данными
adoption of new
вообще
technologies, how
изменит
data
будущее, и
processing,
не утратит ли профессия ручного
and
трейдера
whether
вообще
the manual
какое-то
trading
значение,
occupation is going
заменит ли
to
нас
become
технологии
obsolete.
полностью
Are we going to be replaced by
через некоторое время, ну,
technologies
конкретно
in a
в
period of
контексте
time, particularly in the
валютного
context
рынка и
of
производных финансовых
FX
инструментов?
market and derivatives?
Спасибо, Сергей, за вопрос.
Thank you, Sergey, for your question.
Привет, коллеги.
Good evening, dear colleagues.
Спасибо за возможность принять
Thank you very much for the opportunity to take part in this summit. It's very interesting. Just a couple of words about myself.
Достаточно большой
I
опыт
have
машинного
big
обучения,
experience in machine learning
разным
itself
отраслям, на самом деле.
in
И
different
могу сказать,
industries.
что,
I can say
если мы говорим применительно вот
that
к теме сегодняшнего мероприятия, очень сильно
today's
помогает
topic,
такой как бы кросс-индустриальный опыт.
this cross-industrial experience is very relevant. In machine learning, there are many matching methods which allow you to solve these applied tasks.
Алгоритмический трейдинг,
Talking about the algo trading,
про машинное
about
обучение,
machine learning,
алгоритмы
and about
и
the
машины заменят
algos,
людей,
whether the machines are going to replace
вопрос,
humans,
на самом деле,
the
очень
question is of
философский, и
philosophical
я бы сказал, что
nature,
это
and I
хорошо,
would say that
потому
it's
что
great.
в этой области
In
достаточно
this
много вещей,
field,
которые
in this area, there are many things,
технологические,
technological
скажем так,
things,
они не являются, скажем
which
так, большим вопросом, это просто
are
задачи.
not a question
Они
mark. These are
решаются
just
скелетным
tasks.
качеством, развиваются технологии,
They are solved
и
through
решение так или
technology
иначе
development,
есть. Не прямо сейчас, но
and the
со временем
solution
приходит.
is
Но
going
есть
to be
ключевые
in a period
вопросы,
of time. But there are
которые,
key
собственно, задают
issues
тренды и помогают
which
выбирать
shape
направление
those
для
trends
вашей
and which
истории
allow you
в
to
этом
choose the
В этом
trend, the
смысле,
path.
лично я со своей стороны,
From my
машинное
own
обучение,
perspective, machine learning,
давайте так, вот термин AI,
so
да,
AI
artificial
term,
intelligence, на мой взгляд,
from my
достаточно
perspective,
спорный,
is
потому
quite
что,
questionable.
вот, в меру моего понимания, до
As I
искусственного интеллекта
understand,
настоящего еще очень далеко.
we do not see any real artificial intelligence. I regard this area as machine learning. This is science about data. This is the use of computing methods to solve particular applied tasks. There is no algorithm in place, but the formalization is somewhere in data, so we need to mine patterns to see these links and to apply them in practice.
Importantly, since we are working with data, this is already some given fact, and this is something that's already happened in the past. And if you miss something in data that would prompt you something about the future, then using such data for cases, for forecasting, would be kind of like treading a very murky ground. And talking about algos and people, perhaps, and talking about machine learning data science, we perceive this through more or less the point of view of density of probabilities. And for any normal distribution, this is a story with very thin tails, where most of the events are in the middle, and the very rare cases and events are on the edges. Now, within the framework of the triple sigma dispersion, everything is in the middle. But real life actually differs quite a lot from this idealistic picture, and usually those distribution tails are quite thick on either side or on one side or another. And you have the so-called black swans coming up, and this is the story when in the past we never had anything that would tell us anything about the future. And this is the totally responsibility of people. And this is also a piece of philosophy. Who's responsible for the outcome? We have an algo, but something happens which led to a negative outcome. I mean, we may run into losses or negative references, or clients left us, etc. Who's responsible? Is this the author of the algo? No, there were no complaints against the algo. Those who were monitoring the operation of the algo were not also responsible. But in this sense, it is always a human being who is responsible. And Algos and numerical methods would not replace people. There are some utilitarian processes that can be replaced by algos, but this is just automation of human behavior. So machine learning data science is no magic. It is just one form of automation of human input. Of course, the profession will change. We can discuss that. How much would it change? It would probably make some additional requirements for human operators. Those human operators would need to have broader skills to understand how tools are going to work, because there are risks associated. And if you don't understand how this black box is working, then you are not on top and control of the things, and you cannot manage such risks. And there are risks in any activities. About the evolution of this profession. Indeed, when we hear a lot about the fact that data science is a new milestone in our development, it would change a lot, many things. But when they're talking about the algorithms and trading, we would seem to assume that there has always been a profession of quants, people who analyze financial markets and make forecasts and predictions and build models as to how the price is going to change. And perhaps Evgeny can also continue this discussion, and each of the speakers, of course, can also say something if they want. But Evgeny, what do you think? What is the difference between quants and data scientists? And is this anything new? And why then we are more or less going into new grounds, but apparently not. And why quants were not so good that we think now. All this methodology is something that has always existed. It is not something new. Evgeny? Hello, colleagues. I would debate about data analysis. I think it is. So there's some skipping sound in the channel. When I was a college student 10 years ago, there was no such profession at all. So there's only a few years old. And the question is, what is the difference between a data scientist and core science? So data science is not really science, but rather art.
Люди, которые занимаются data science, более прикладные. Они более склонны показать хорошую реализацию и так далее. То есть это новый аспект.
So this is a new aspect.
И работы с моделями, я бы сказал.
Of working with the models, I would say.
John,
Thank you.
can we hear your view on this subject, on this topic? So John, could you start? What is your opinion?
I don't hear you so well, Sergey, but thank you very much for inviting me to the conference. I only wish I could speak Russian and be in Moscow with you, but we'll make do with England and English. So apologies. There was a lot of interesting points brought up, and I will try to address a few of them. One was Sergey's comment that AIs, they only work in the middle. And he actually, there was two comments I really liked from Sergey. Second one was, he said, AI is only automation, it's not magic. And, I'm a physicist by training. And if you can't tell the difference between two different things, you can say they're equivalent. And for me, automation is magic. The fact that I don't have to do anything, my team doesn't. We have a neural net in our pricer, which predicts whether the markets go up or down and volatility. And you may call that automation, but for me, it's literally magic. I mean, it just works. Sergey's point was excellent, though. The AI can't predict things that it's never seen. It is data mining, not to downplay it, but it is just data mining. And so there are limits. I think Sergey said 3 sigmas, but I don't know what the value is, but there are tails. And the tails are something the AI doesn't know how to control or predict. And so you're going to have some manual operation on the tails. And so that's still, I think, a very good situation. That means that, 95% of the time I don't do anything. The computer does all the work for me. And then 5% of the time I have to work. And I think going from 100% work to 5% is basically magic. I mean, maybe it's better than that. There was a question from Sergey. It's quants, now it's data scientists. Why was it that the quants were not so good? Well, like the traders, the quants before AI had to do a lot of work, and so they had to do a lot of modeling. You were limited to how many good ideas they had. And one of the nice things about machine learning, AI, deep learning is they just scale better. And so you still need somebody in the loop. You still need this person who's very clever, but they can just get more done with less time. And so again, I guess I'll come full circle. To me, it's kind of magic. It's kind of that we have a small team and they act more like a big team.
Sorry, you said that you have a small team, but how much do you rely actually on your data scientists in your FX trading, in all the ecosystem? So how important is what your data scientists do, the work which they do for you in pricing?
So it's very confusing. Yeah, it's very confusing where to draw the line, and I think that's a good question. I just can't tell you. So all the traders, the quants, some of the developers, they spend a lot of time analyzing data or using AI techniques to do their job for them, and so I don't know. Everyone's kind of become a data scientist, whether you're a trader doing analysis, you're a quant designing a neural net to predict market direction, volatility, or hedge strategies. Everyone uses the technique.
Thank you, John. И я хотел бы снова, может быть, спросить Сергея.
And now I would like to ask Sergey again, if he can go into more detail about what type of data we work with in capital markets, in FX markets, and what are the tasks that we can resolve through data science methods. Just a little follow-up on quants and data scientists. The story here is that we had to really draw a line between them, to draw some boundary between them, because trading has always been staffed with quants. If you talk about trading, without which it would not be possible. And data scientists, came later. That there's a question then, if those are the same and can probably be put together. But a simple solution for us was that for quants are an essential element of the core process, algo trading, algo hedging, but data scientists as a profession is a derivative of business, of core business. I said it's about automation, but automation more or less like very specialized one, using specialized tools. And the application there is broader than we would see from quants. Quants are narrow experts, data scientists are much broader, maybe not that deep, but broader. Trading would not really narrow down to market operations. There's always the client side, and this is always a story. As Dima Gavrilet said, that we work for clients, we render services to them. But to have somebody to render services to, you need to engage those clients. And clients have their client ways, their clients matching, client portfolios, and we need to understand how clients live and what would be the needs of clients. If there are clients that use products, open an account, then we want to have some flow on that account, especially when we're talking about retail. The privates, then there's always a question how to, to engage clients for the client to start transacting. If you take client managers, you probably sometimes use your charm, and then the client would do something with you. Sign a document, open an account with you, but then you need to have some movement on that account. And there are many tasks from some adjacent areas, like customer management and the client way. You need to understand what the products would be needed, to look like analysis, and the motivation of the clients. And in this sense, if you talk about data, this is a more difficult area. Real-time data, market data, there's some specifics. You need to clean the data, you need to match data, you need to put tags, but the challenges are much broader for clients. Harder to get data, things about data security. You're talking about personal information, and in each location in every country you have specific laws about how to use personal data. And there's a story such as frequency. How frequent do we see a digital trace of clients? How often would a client transact with you? A typical retail customer who does conversions would have maybe one transaction or a transaction and a half a year. To have a good track of that client and data flow for that, it's a separate task. I mean, there are many similar clients that you can put into profiles or portraits, but where do you take such data? Whether you have enough data to really provide the solution to a spectrum, a range of tasks that I mentioned. Evgeny, do you want to continue? What kind of data and what kind of tasks can be resolved through data science? Well, unlike what Quants could do. Indeed, if you take a look at the FX market, well, we have a number of locations and exchanges, and our data are growing proportionally. Ну, скажите, что не слышно ничего. Ну, что это за бред? Ну, ведущий есть? I'm sorry, unfortunately, the sound is skipping and hard to understand what the person is saying.
Sorry, I can't hear myself. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, but please, could you say just to the microphone, because when you are sometimes we can hardly hear you when you are saying somewhere to window.
I hear myself translating, and that's a little bit hard. So, да, если мы говорим про рынок FX, то
So when we are talking about the FX market,
и это увеличивает наш набор данных, с которым мы можем работать.
Well, the availability of exchanges would increase the volume of data available that we work with.
Или цены, она усложняется из-за того, что у нас такой массивный набор данных.
Because of the amount of data that we have to process, it makes our task harder.
Поскольку они работают пропорционально лучше. Если у вас больше данных, тем лучше
If you have more data, the model works better.
Тем не менее, я хотел бы отметить, что
However,
у нас хорошие библиотеки работы с таким фреймворком в скриптовых языках, таких как Python. Но когда
we use our libraries to work in such as script languages as Python.
Того, что развитых фреймворков
But we don't have more developed frameworks in languages such as Java.
Практически полностью с нуля.
And sometimes you have to start from the scratch.
Как применение на практике в данный момент.
Спасибо. John, so can you tell me a little bit more, probably, so if we are talking about the tasks which your data scientists are solving, so is it more focus, let's say, on some prediction about the market behavior, or it's more like tasks on clients, clusterization, or something like that?
Sergey, was that question for me?
Yeah. Did you hear
Super.
it? Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I heard the question. I just didn't hear the beginning. Thank you very much. So great question. What we focus on is using market data to predict market conditions. And so, simple examples is, will the market go up or down or stay at the current level? Will the market become more volatile or more calm? So we understand what its spreads are. And we use that information. The reason we do, again, I think this was Sergey's point, is when there's lots of data, and maybe Evgeny made the same point, when there's lots of data, it's a lot easier. And so what is there the most data, the type? It's market data. I mean, we have lots of exchanges, euro dollar's easy, even something, can't remember if we have the neural net live in the Israeli shekel, but I think we do, Romanian euro rom too. So we don't need a lot of market data because there's generally just a ton of it. And so if you want to predict market direction, that's easy. To the point Sergey made about a customer trading every 18 months, you're not going to do well. Sergey, again, he mentioned you have to use your charm. I don't have much charm, so I have to find some data. And what we tried to do is we try to aggregate different customer types to provide something there. But that's generally a much more difficult problem than predicting markets, which is kind of funny because most of us think that the most efficient part of the market is the price action. But it turns out that there's still an efficiency there because of the ability to use AI on data sets. One thing I'd say, when we talk about this, when I hear other people talk about AI, I often get excited, like, how can I do it? And there's many places that I don't need to compete or contribute. So if I Google cat, Google somehow finds lots of cat pictures for me, that's something they do for me for free. I mean, I guess they're using my data. One of the things I expect most of the banks are either doing or will do soon is use AI to tighten spreads. And so I don't think everybody has to reinvent the wheel here. I think, the liquidity providers will be using AI to tighten spreads, and then clients can benefit from that. Thank you.
Thank you. Если можно, хотел бы немножко поговорить.
If you may, let's talk about those technologies that are used. And in this respect,
Интересно, например, чтобы вы осветили.
I'd like you to, Sergey, let's start with you to comment on how you rely on your own developments, on external products by big high-tech companies, by Google, IBM. All the major vendors have some solutions in this respect. How accessible these solutions are, how important it is to use them, or maybe you need to add something of your own. With this simple question, the issue is very sophisticated. First of all, this is about the investment, financial investment to solve a particular task. So the cost per task resolution is one of the questions. Talking about the quality of those tasks that we have, in our practice we try to use several algo groups or platforms which can be used to solve the task. In particular, we have enterprise platforms, special, not free of charge instruments that we use to solve tasks. We use bootars in our practice. This is not the community version, but this is the final instrument. We pay our technical support for that. But the algorithms are developed by the community. In this respect, of course, there are some libraries, Python-based libraries. There are some environments, frameworks ready to use, H2O, which are used by us for different tasks. One of the areas in machine learning and data science which is called democratizations after email algos, which automate the activity of data scientists themselves. They allow them to have pipelines providing for a baseline for a particular task. So in this respect, the person who is trying to solve the task doesn't need to put much effort. The machine gives a number of algorithms from basic to some regressions and neural networks and demonstrate which algorithm performs better based on a particular data set, which we input. So the human can choose. This baseline, at the current stage of development, may be compared to data scientists of John Plus. More difficult tasks cannot be solved through these approach, but they give a good baseline. Talking about particular instruments and tools, algorithms are different, the whole spectrum is accessible, so we try to choose the best one for the task. There are some cases when this average for 3 days gives better than algorithms and neural networks, just considering the specifics of the process itself. There are no signals which allow complicated algos to mine patterns and to give the precise results just do not work. There are no bad algos. There is lack of data. We don't know something about these processes, about this event. For a number of reasons, we do not collect this data. So even the simple things can give good results compared with sophisticated approaches. To conclude, in our practice, we try to use simultaneously several toolkits. We compare the results. We have kind of a domestic benchmarking, which hedges us against specifics and quality of particular teams which are developing particular algos, particular libraries. The same question to colleagues online. Eugene, are you using any developments of corporate open source solutions, or do you focus on your own developments?
Thanks. I'll just answer English so it will be a little bit easier for John without translation. So yes, of course, there are a lot of open source frameworks that you can use, and not to mention TensorFlow, Tiano, etc. in Python that you can easily plug in and build a model from scratch, and it will be pretty easy to do. And you can plug in your data, and you can play around and see the results pretty easy. But I would say that if you need to build something more sophisticated than that, you would need a data science team. And the reason you need a data science team is that perfection takes time. So with any new model, with any new approach, especially when it comes to building neural networks, etc., you can't get a good result just trying with the first model that you have. You would need iteration, and it takes time to actually get an understanding of what works and not what doesn't work, depending on the problem you're trying to solve. And that's where the data science person or a person dedicated to studying data science and applying machine learning techniques to production can give you an edge, because people would people are trying to solve the similar problems across the business, and they have experience solving similar problems. And the iteration can you can cut your iteration much faster if you have someone that has an experience with a particular task. So yes, we do use open source frameworks, but we also try to build in-house applications and frameworks to work on top of that and to make it generic and scalable. And I would say that's the road to success if you have a big organization. And even if you have a small organization, it also helps you iterate and scale into different asset class. If you build a model for FX, you can always generalize it and make it scalable for any other asset classes.
John, what about you? What about your team? So how much do you rely on some external open source opportunities and projects from large companies, or you mainly in-house developed?
Super. Thank you, Sergey. So Evgeny spoke in English for me. I guess I'm supposed to speak in Russian for him, but that's not going to happen. I apologize. Maybe next time. So I think I almost 100% agree with Evgeny. The framework is kind of not the hard part. Frameworks are easy. PyTorch, TensorFlow. These are all freely available and super good. And so if you just think about FX trading, it's kind of like nobody focuses on the terminal, an EBS or a Reuters terminal. That's not where you get your value. That's kind of commoditized. And we're fortunate enough that these PyTorch and TensorFlows frameworks are amazing. They're fast. They're easy to set up. I also agree with Evgeny that when you go into production, you're generally not using the frameworks. They're a learning framework, not a prediction framework. So you have to rebuild things. Again, I don't think there's much value add in that. I mean, you need professionals who know how to do it and how to do it low latency and correctly. But the real value add is in having the group, the smart people around. And I'd encourage anybody in the audience to go and try to solve the famous MNIST problem, where you use some neural nets to figure out handwritten numbers. And when you do it, this is back to Sergey's comments, it's a lot more art than science. And if you go through the websites, it really feels like a lot of people just randomly try every different setup, which is not a very efficient way to approach the problem. And so when you build in intellectual property into a team, they know quicker what to try. And that's the real value add. And just to put a point to this, it took us 3 years to get our neural net working. And so, it wasn't, you just put in lots of data, everything comes out. There was a lot of learning.
Thank you. And so we will now come back to the question from which we actually started. Можно вывести опрос, который
I have the poll that we have in our application on the screen. That concerns the future of the future of occupation of a manual trader, as the following wording, whether it will die out or will the machines replace humans on the market. Today we see kind of a balanced opinion. We have 50 to 50 of those who believe that humans are going to be replaced by algorithms in several years to come, and the occupation of a manual trader will be obsolete. And we have 50% of those who believe that people cannot be outperformed by the machines. We have 4 minutes left. We have 9 minutes left in our panel discussion, so 3 minutes for each of you, just final comments on these issues. Sergey, let's start with you. The results are quite vivid. So this is a so-called holy war, a vivid example, whether the artificial intelligence is going to enslave the humans. This is the question discussed by everybody, by Elon Musk or by anyone. There are a lot of TV shows, movies, different books on that. How our future is going to look like in several years, perspective in several decades. I do believe that the key role is going to be played by a human. talking about the algorithm, talking about AI, as going to be a service function. But there are different opinions in this respect. If you have got acquainted with the forecast of Kurzweil, in 2040 something, he forecast that human intelligence is going to be in full synergy with the artificial intelligence, is going to be full interaction. I'm going to have an old school approach to that. I do believe that human is a very flexible substance and very adaptive one. Human is always ready to adapt to changing circumstances and is going to be alpha in the future, which we are yet to see. In this respect, AI, if we see it at the end of the day, is not going to be a very fast thing to happen, and this is to be a service function mostly. You know, several issues make me think so. Technological points, the energy efficiency of what we have in our scalp is a kind of very efficient tool created by nature, which requires low energy but gives a lot of value at the end of the day. If we look around at what we have created over a not very long period of time, and we're creating AI, that makes us think that we are quite efficient. To create something close by efficiency measure, we don't have any computing capacity right now. We cannot put it in a very compact, convenient box and to provide enough energy for it to be very efficient. Whenever we can do that, this is an open question for me. Thank you very much. I would like to give one remark. The approach to innovations from the perspective of energy efficiency doesn't work in most cases. Let's look at Bitcoin. There's a lot of energy spent to log in one transaction. This is the most inefficient technology which might have been created. In macroeconomic scale, a lot of power is used to mine Bitcoins. So very often humans use resources and to spend these resources on the things they like. Eugene,
please could you probably your thoughts about the future of profession and its artificial intelligence?
Yeah, thanks, Sergey. So I think if we compare the industry right now to the self-driving cars, I think we're pretty much on par. So we have self-driving cars that can do a reasonable job, but they're still not a common thing on our street. And same with the algorithmic trading. Probably we can get to 100% of automation, but the system wouldn't perform as we expect it to be. So I think we were going to continue to see the trend where we're going to see the electronification of trading. We're going to see more asset classes moving into electronic fashion of execution. And we see more electronic traders, and we're going to see more people that are going to using AI and ML strategies to adopt to the new technology. And that's just a natural progression of where the market is going. But there will always be a human overseeing how things work, because you ultimately need either it will be a developer trader, whatever you call it, a trader data science, and a quant overseeing the same strategy. This is going to adapt, and we're going to figure out the best model how to do it. But the trend will be like ultimately we're going to see like 99% automation in the future.
Thank you. And John, now is your turn to speculate a little bit about the future of profession in that context.
Yeah, so I think we're all pretty much agreed that automation is going to take. I like this the picture Sergey put where you have a normal distribution and the center is all automated and AI and life's easy, and the tails, even though they're fat, they're going to get smaller and smaller. The one thing I think most people forget though is those tails will have higher and higher returns. And so if you just think back to the fateful day, January 15th, 2015, SMB, Euro Swiss went down to something like 85. I guess most AIs and algos failed. And, those days don't happen so often, but the spreads were extremely wide that day. So even though it's going to get rarer and rarer, I think the return for somebody to step in and provide that service is going to mean that human traders won't go away. There'll just be less of them. They will be less busy. But when they are finally called upon, they're going to have outsized returns for providing a service. And if we just think about the car driving analogy, once Uber self-driving cars are all around, cars will be cheap. But the day they all go offline and you really need to get over to a nice dinner or a friend's house, you'll pay a big premium to get there. And that's where I think, there'll always be human drivers and automation, and the same will be true of trading. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Спасибо, Sergey. Спасибо.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Eugene. Thank you, Sergey. We have had a very interesting panel discussion. Let's give a round of applause to our speakers.
Thank you.